Thank you for attending Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 98, I think. As we are approaching our 100th episode, and people have been bugging me about what are you going to do for your 100th episode, I was looking around my garage for other things, and I found some magnetic racing kits that I have not put together. And I probably won't. So on the 99th episode, we're going to come up with how you enter the contest for these magnetic racing kits. I believe I have 2 Grandstand and 1 Marshall hut of some sort, so we'll do 3 winners, and then we'll pull those winners on the 100th episode. So if you're watching this, don't miss the next episode, and then don't miss the 100th episode. So that out of the way, we have a new attendee who is willing to talk about his slot car related history. Sam Grabenhorst, please, the floor is yours. Tell us all about your slot car related history.
Okay. I'm 55. I've been into HO since I was about 6 years old. Collected and raced whatever I could find, garage sales. I remember there was a hobby shop when I was a kid that sold a lot of HO. And when I'd go in to buy a car, I'd drool over all the brand new ones. And one day I asked him if he had any used ones. And he said, well, yeah, we have people that bring them in and I warranty them. And he pulled up this tray and he would sell them to me for a couple bucks. So I was just tickled, I was 10 years old. And I'd get home and I'd take my tweezers and I'd pull about a pound of carpet lint out, take an eraser to the pickups, and I had a good car. But about 1989, I found 1988-89, I found the large scale track. And I went down that rabbit hole big time. For about 8 years, I raced on different tracks, and then in our area, they just dried up. By the way, I live in Toledo, Oregon, just outside of Newport. And I've looked at your little map on where there's some tracks. And there's one about an hour and a half away in Eugene that looks like they pushed 124 scale, and I don't want to go there again. But about 10 or 12 years ago, I found a 132nd scale at a model car show, which that's my first love, are model cars. And if you look around my hobby room, I have way too many. And I was just amazed at the detail on this little car and that it was plastic. So I'm like, cool. So I found a used Scale Electric, the Mini Cooper set, which is a basic oval or figure 8, however you set it up. And over the years, I've collected a few more cars, traded models for them. And I've got about half a dozen now. And I've got about 4 or 5 132nd scale model cars that I plan on practicing putting chassis under. A guy I know on the model car forum that I'm on, VTech 4, made a comment on one of the builds I was following that he was going to break off and go into his 132nd slot cars for again. And I went, oh, I haven't even dug mine out for about 10 years. So, or 7, 8. I can't remember. It's been too long. But I messaged him back and forth for a little bit, started emailing, and he sent me to your site that you guys are on. So I've been lurking for a few days, because that's actually been 3 days ago, and haven't signed up yet. But I kind of look for drama and stay away from that sort of thing. But I followed your last program for about half an hour, and I'm like, oh, these guys seem pretty nice. So when I sign up, I'll be under my normal Sam I am. So
we could fix that quickly.
And like I say, I am so out of it on slot cars, especially the 132nd, since I wasn't into those. I remember back when I was on the large scale, I'd see people running these Womps, and I'm like, nah, just don't care for those. They didn't do anything for me. But the detail in these more modern, I guess you'd say, is just unbelievable. So I'm sure that about 90% of what you guys talk about is either going to go over or through. So I'll be quiet for a while and ask certain questions, but
Yeah, don't be afraid
I'll
to
be
ask.
upfront, don't know much, and admit it. So,
And that's perfectly all right.
So,
You know,
like I say, I've only got about 6 cars, but
Only dumb questions are allowed.
yeah,
I'm
only dumb
into
questions.
the older. But those are the only dumb questions are the one you don't ask.
That's true. Well, thank you for coming, and you're welcome to
I
come.
like the
every
shirt.
time.
Mine should say models.
Oh,
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock my time, so on the West Coast.
that's where I am.
I'd like to find somebody that has maybe a private track I can practice on that's into 132nd, but I have no idea. I'm sure there's some in the Portland area, but that's 2.5 hours, and at almost $5 a gallon, it's gonna have to be something special.
Yeah, have you already
Gas
found
in Oregon, $5
have
a
you already,
gallon?
have you already found the naste.org, NASTE.org website? They are the I forget what nasty stands for, but
The Northwest Association of Slot Track Enthusiasts.
yes, that's perfect.
Okay.
But they are primarily in
his memory.
They are primarily in the Oregon, northern
Portland,
Oregon, lower
Portland,
Washington
Hillsborough,
area.
Newburgh.
So
Oh,
they
okay.
are a good source to check out for, if there's anybody, closer to
Maybe
you. I don't know off the top of my head if there are, any closer to you, but I haven't been to their site for a while, but that's a good place to start.
So when the large scale dried up and I decided that about the time the recession hit, 08, 07, 08, I said, I haven't been using them for a few, 4 or 5 years, and I needed to put food on the table. So I started selling the ones that I had that I'd been playing with and racing. And then I went through all the part stuff and started putting them together so I could sell them. And I came up with about 50 cars. So I just said, nope, good thing I'm getting rid of these. And my kids outgrew the HO. So about 4 years ago, I sold them off. And I've just been hanging on to this 132nd and just hadn't really figured out why I was hanging on to it. But maybe now I know.
Well, hopefully you find some enjoyment and find somebody to race with.
Yeah, I think the first thing I'll do is look around for some track. So, and it's the analog, it's the old school, so I don't mind that.
Good a place to start as any.
Yep. Oh, and if any of you are into model car building, I've got way too many, and I'm happy to trade.
Maybe we'll have to start a thread on some of the forums, Worldwide Slot Car Horse Trading thread or something like that.
Sounds good.
Well, again, welcome to the chat, and by all means, come to future chats and ask any question that pops into your mind. As a reminder to everyone, please leave your microphone muted unless you are wanting people to hear you speak, so that coughs and sneezes and dogs and doorbells and things don't interrupt somebody while they're speaking or presenting. Now we will transition to the first thing we usually do, which is show and tell. Frank already has his hand up. Are you going to do a show and tell, Frank?
Why, yes, I am.
Excellent. We'll start with Frank and then get to Tony.
Is Dewan, are you on the
Yep, he's there.
Zoom today? He's there? Oh, good. Well, I have a pit case that Dewan will be getting this weekend or next. Gary Woods, a gentleman in our Far Out Club, had made some pit cases out of the aluminum cases they sell down at Harbor Freight quite a few years ago. And he stopped making them, and then he has since passed away. And one time I was at his house for a race, so I picked up some of the components and I built one. And since then, almost every race I take it to, people ask me, where'd you get that? Who's making those? Who's doing this? Well, I finally decided to go ahead and make a couple to see if people would be interested. So if I can get this switched over, I was going to show and tell DeJuan's race case. So that's how it starts out. And then when you open it, of course, you've got your tool holder at the top. And then down below, what Gary had, he used to have a cooling fan. He had switch on and off switches. Back in the day, he wasn't able to get a adjustable voltage meter like this one. So the components to do the voltage change was in a different box underneath. But basically what this is, this side here, I have it set up so it runs the motor backwards for scuffing tires. This one is forward for whatever, warming up motors or what have you. And then inside is storage. So you can put cars in there. That's the battery. That's what will power the voltage regulator. And then all the dividers for putting cars, oils, sandpaper, whatever you want to in there. So I decided to do this, and DeJuan will be my the first sale that I've got. Actually, when we got together a few weeks ago at Far Out, he sparked me to get this moving. It's been something I've been thinking about doing for a long time.
Frank, that looks great. It looks like a Hoffman box on steroids.
A little bit, yeah.
That looks pretty cool.
Well, thank you. So I wanted to show that.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome. Definitely. And hope to see you this weekend, but if not, maybe the next weekend at Electric Dreams for our Far Out race there.
Yep, I'm at 50-50 on making it down so far. Yeah. Great.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Frank before we move on? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Frank. And Tony has.
Wait. Frank, so if they're for sale, how much are they? And like, what's the turnaround? Because I'm sure people will be interested in getting one.
Well, right now I have enough to make about 7 boxes, because to get the polycarbonate done, you have to buy a 4x8 sheet, and they're able to cut 8 out of there. And one is actually going to a friend that already has a, 2 of them actually. One had a box, both of them have boxes already, but I'm going to retail them at $200.
So, and they're all limited editions. Wow.
Do you want people to start contacting you now, Frank, or do you want to hold off?
No, they can start contacting me now. I've got DeJuan's done, another friend of mine, Elgin's is done, and I've actually got 1 or 2 in the works and 1 already made. So
perfect. If you could drop your email into the chat, I'll make sure that's in the description so people watching the video can get a hold of you, and you'll probably sell in a couple of days.
That would be great. Love it. Gotta get the money, the capital money back into the checking account.
Yep.
Frank?
Yes.
Have you thought about putting an LED light up in the top?
No, I wanted to keep it simple and keep the cost down. So the more things I add, the higher the cost goes up. And, I don't know exactly how much Gary Woods used to charge for his, but I wanted to keep the cost of this down because, a lot of us have a lot of money, but still I want to make it less, just more cost effective.
What would the LED light be for, Jim?
To be able to see small things,
okay, just like
a or whatever.
Yeah, a pit light.
An extra light to see.
For our old eyes, Greg, not you young fellers, you don't need as much light as we do. But
no, I need lots of light, and I need my geezer goggles. So yeah,
Frank,
I'm not in that group.
Frank, all you have to do is make the Lexan optical, right? Grind it to their prescription.
That's right.
Perfect.
That makes perfect sense. But for some reason in my head, I was thinking, he might want some indicator light to indicate something. So I was like, what kind of indication would you need?
Put a candle in the case.
Just remember, it's the picnic philosophy of marketing, right? You make the potato cheap, you hit them on the sour cream and chives.
There you go.
Are you going to accept gasoline in exchange?
Absolutely.
$200 Texaco gas card.
Especially like I'm going racing tonight in LA, and it's going to cost me quite a bit just to get there. But it's, you got to pay for your fun sometimes.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else got any questions for Frank? I have a question for Frank.
Yes.
It's totally unrelated, but I'm sure you've seen this picture because spammers put it in every slot car group they can find with a guy that looks very much like you wearing a t-shirt, AFX Racing. Have you seen that picture?
No.
Oh my goodness. Next time I see it, I'll copy and send it to you.
Okay.
But it looks just like you. And I'm like, is that Frank?
Really?
That's
No,
the one that you get those Facebook messages that says, "Is this you in the video?"
And then Sam, the one that introduced himself, was talking about having too many slot cars. Can you read my shirt?
Let me spotlight you there. That's too many
Yes.
slot cars, said no one
I
ever.
saw that. Mine should say model cars at the end, but
The best one I've seen is one of a wife looking over the shoulder of a husband saying, "Are you looking at slot cars again? Why can't you watch porn like a regular husband?"
saw that.
That is a good one.
All right, moving on. Thank you, Frank. Tony, you are next, sir. What you got new today? His chair is empty, so we're going to move to Don and go back to Tony. What's going on, Don?
Well, I received this Monday.
Ooh, is that the Carrera or the Scalextric?
It's the Carrera,
Nice.
and it runs very well.
Mm-hmm, they do.
One of the things that I was disappointed about, but it's no big deal, is it won't run around the 230 curve banks either.
Oh, the banks, yeah, because it's so low.
So
It's the
I
diffuser at the
removed
back.
them. I don't have bank curves anymore because I didn't want to carve up all my cars.
Yep.
So
Nice.
that's the new C8, folks.
That is a beautiful car. Just
And
needs a little
that's
bit
all.
more blue on it. All right, thanks, Don.
got the
Apart from
same
turning
thing.
it over, the quickest way to tell whether it's a Scalex or a Carrera is whether it has the refuelers just behind the doors.
Oh, yeah.
The gas caps, they're not on the Scalex one for some reason.
Yeah, the 124. It looks awesome. I tell
They
you.
are nice. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's a nice car, although heavy, man. They're like 115 grams or something like that, but they run pretty well.
Looks like Neil got one as well.
Are you showing yours off, Neil? It's still in the
I
box.
have
Have you even opened it up?
It
All
ran
right,
great
thank-
at Big Lou's.
What was that, Jim?
It ran great at Big Lou's the other night.
Oh, yeah, you did run that one, didn't you? Very cool. All right, so thank you, Don. And moving on to Tony. He's back at his chair. What's new for you, Mr. Petrucci? All right, let me zoom in on you here. Oh, you got one of Henry's machines.
Yeah,
How do you like it?
I haven't tried it yet because the power we sent is continental, so I've had to wait. I've got to get the English plug one, so it's pretty neat. It's nice size. You can just fit it into the kit box and take it with you and test your cars at the track when you're racing. Light, really good. I'm happy with this one.
Yeah, it looks great. Let us know how it works when you get that power going.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I've
right.
ordered some cars, but they haven't arrived yet.
Is it a dynamometer or what is the function of that? I've forgotten.
Oh, you've missed Henry's presentations, Dewan?
No, I can't remember.
It's the speed. It's the speed meter. So it's kind of it's pretty much a dyno, yeah. So it shows, it shows voltage and RPM and kph and stuff like that. So you can see how fast the car is actually going at the wheels.
Okay, I remember now. Yes, okay,
That's pretty cool. I look forward to getting one as well.
I'm surprised how quick I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
me too.
Hey, there's Henry.
It took 4 days to come from Holland. Really pleased with that.
You're the lucky one.
Oh, here we go.
Some others has to took 3 weeks.
Ouch.
No, it's been very good. I had trouble getting in touch with you at first, but eventually I got there. I had trouble paying for it and all because I never paid anybody before on the thing, so I had to go on YouTube how to pay someone's on their email.
Yeah.
You mean all that? Wait, hold on. You mean all that stuff behind you got for free?
he did it the old-fashioned way. Henry, since you're here, I assume that it's okay for people to go ahead and contact you worldwide if they're interested in that product at this point?
No problem at all.
All right.
For at least Europe, because I'm not out of it for America yet. But let's see how it goes, because the UK was a little bit of a fuss.
Yeah.
But they're new with they did Brexit, so
Yeah.
they're new with custom, because normally it was Europe, and I don't think the custom don't know yet how to handle it. So Bertucci is 4 or 5 days, and I had another one in London. It took 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well, if people want to contact you, do you want to put your email into the chat so that they can contact you? Perfect.
Okay.
And
Bertucci, you can do another wall sockets. You can cut the wires and
And
do
I
another
don't
wall
like
socket.
doing that.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd rather have the proper plug on the end.
Okay.
Or
Was,
go down to the department store and get the travel adapters so that you can use that plug on your.
That's the trouble. I haven't found one of them yet.
I might have to order it off Amazon.
The new electric shavers and that are all different now, aren't they? The batteries and whatever.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for showing that off.
This
We're
is
looking
lovely.
forward.
I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with it, Emery. Thanks very much.
All
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
We'll,
You're
we'll
welcome.
find out how happy he really is once he gets it going.
So is.
All right. Thanks, Tony. And we are ready to move on to Sam. What would you like to show and tell today, Sam?
Well, it's what of the ones that I've picked up, it's one that I consider pretty unique for what I've seen. It's a SCX Mitsubishi all-wheel drive. Let's see if I get it up here.
Oh, yeah. One of their rally raid cars.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want
and it reminds me of a drag car because of how that's fixed on it.
Yeah.
So
For those hilly tracks.
I have not tried testing it yet because I have to solder let's see, I have to solder that wire back on the pickup.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize SCX did those. I know Ninco did a lot of those.
Yeah, it's Mitsubishi Montero and SCX.
Cool. All right, thanks for showing that one off. And Jeremy has his hand up. What's going on?
Hey, thanks. About 15 years ago, our club raced a lot of Ninco classics, and then we were allowed to change the wheels and axles out, and everybody did. And now I'm trying to get those cars back, buying them from people, but I can't find the original axles. So Leo actually helped me out. He got me a pair in the mail. And then on eBay, I found this one, new old stock. It's kind of starting to yellow a little, I think, from the sun. That's my first pick. And then I know how much everybody loves NASCAR stuff. Look at that gem. All right. All right.
Those cars are cool. I'm not a
I make
NASCAR
fun of
person.
those NASCARs, Monte Carlos, but they handle perfect. They're just whatever design they made in them. They've got that perfect triangle. They never fly out of the track.
Yeah.
I love them.
Hey, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Pro Tinker Toys is selling those NASCARs for real cheap right now.
Hey, I know, like $23.
That's crazy.
I was like, I bought all of them, and I like the fact that they have the fake liveries. I don't care. I don't need the NASCAR livery because I'm not really a NASCAR fan. I'd rather just have the fake ones.
And of course, I bought the blue and yellow one.
Yeah, but it works for me. So, anyway, that's all I had.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Good
Leo.
stuff. Thanks for sharing, Jeremy. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to share and or show and tell about? If not, we'll move on to Club Corner. And now the floor is open for any past, present, or future club-related activity. Big Den is raring to go with both his virtual hand and his real-life hand. Go ahead, Big Den.
I'll unmute. Yep. Yeah. Hello, fellas. For our new gent Sam there, he's talking about his time. It's just about 5:30 in the morning over where I am. So just dedication to the group. It's just unbelievable. Show and tell first. I'll just share a screen. It's just a completion of a couple of projects I was talking about earlier on. So this. There we go on there. We got that up?
It's coming in slow. There it is,
okay.
F1 car.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's, I finally finished the decaling on my NSR Formula One, 81, 89. I did, the decals I used were from England, and it sort of replicates one of the early 80s March colour schemes. Sorry, I'll say that again, Tyrrell colour schemes. So didn't work out too bad. The photos are worse than what the car actually looks. So
looks good.
Moving on to my Polycar Monoposto. Of all the colour schemes or the liveries I had to pick, it had to be the Russian-sponsored one, didn't it? So I tried where I could to, I think there's one little Ural-Kali decal on the front of it, but the rest of the car I've sanctioned, so there's no, so it's just the Haas Ace colour scheme. It's come up quite nice, actually. For someone who'd never sort of, painted a white kit until about 4 or 5 months ago, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, it looks great.
Moving on, this is talking white kits. So I got a Revo slot wiper a Viper white kit, and looking for something creative, and I found on Pendle slot a decal set from a company called DMC, and this particular Viper is the delivery is a bunch called S Corp, who run it in about 2004 at Le Mans. The only change I made is I did the gunmetal as the main colour instead of black. So again, that's just need to put the wing on it and mount it on the chassis, do the interior, and that'll be that. Another look at it there. And I'm almost ashamed to show this, but Frank, this is my pit box. It's made up of a couple of 2-compartment storage drawers from a local hardware store, with an aluminium, couple of bits of flat aluminium down the side, a piece of dowel across the top, a Tupperware container to put my controllers and my WD-40 in, and I wouldn't be charging anywhere near $200 for it. Yeah, so
whatever works,
Yeah, we had a discount store many years ago in Tasmania and part of Australia called Chicken Feed, because that's what their prices were, and similar drawers to this. Just about everyone in this, a lot of the Hobart guys, everyone had their Chicken Feed carry case, and a lot of them have still got them, 20 years later. So they're pretty hardy. I might just move out of that one and move straight into Club Corner if I could.
It looks like there's a drawer there for ice and beer. That is if you drink your beer cold. Not everybody does.
Well, normally I wouldn't have the controllers in the top there, Jim. The little Tupperware containers designed for Australian conditions. In other words, it'll take 6 stubbies or 6 cans of beer. So, okay, I'll just move somewhere else and do the show and tell. I'll just get the and I'll just go back and share the screen. There we go. Okay. So I decided to play a little bit on Jim's NorCal scene with a NorTaz slot car scene, just for the
Copyright.
Yeah, well, I did have apologized there, Jim. So,
That's not admissible in court. Sorry.
Call you right now.
Yeah, so we started off with under 2-litre sedans. Yeah, mainly these are brass chassis cars, and the exception was my Ninko Sierra there. So that was the finishing order. So I managed to scrape onto the podium again there.
Just Big Dan, that MGB looked really cool in the back.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure whether that really, it's under 2-litre of course, but I'm not sure whether it qualifies as a touring car. So, but I didn't argue with the guy. We're not literally not racing for sheep stations. So there was no acrimony or anything over that. If he'd have won, maybe there would have been some. But
Big Dan, do you happen to have pictures of the brass chassis that are underneath these cars?
Look, I haven't, Frank, but we're having a meet now. Next meeting is on April the 1st. I'm not sure there's any significance in that, but it'll, April Fool's Day. Do you have that over there, April Fool's Day? On April the 1st?
Yeah, we call them elections.
Yeah. You had to go and ruin it, didn't you, John Kitt? Okay, so there was the results, and then moving on, the next class was slotted DTMs. We had 8, as you can probably count up there. We only had 8 running. A couple of people had, family birthdays or some other thing on. So, well, interstate work commitments. So, again, I heavily disguised as Ellen Law. I managed to sneak into the placings again there. It's just a back view. There's a fella he made off with all the cars, so we'll find him though. He picked them up and put them in a bag. And the results, to get the results to me, they take a photo of the final screen with my cameras, my camera, and whoever sent it to me didn't do a very good job, but at least we got the placings right before the screen, the scores went off the screen. So that's the correct finishing order, but unfortunately I didn't know we didn't get the last the details of the last 4 placings there. And our last class, Group C, slottets, all of them slottets by the look of it. I moved up one there in the 2nd position by about half a lap, and not due to any tuning tips by Jim. I just happened to find that after our last Group C race, this car was faster than any of the others that I ran, the Sauber. So I ran it this time and just went within half a lap of pulling off the win. So quite happy with that. And I think, okay, now we move from NorTaz to SouTaz down to Hobart Tuesday night last week. And our first class was the Car Tricks 50s GPs or Formula One. So we had a nice field of 12 there. These all Car Tricks brand, obviously. That's me. That's.
Oh no! Did we lose Big Dan?
Oh no, we lost him right at the cool. I think these are the coolest cars ever.
I think he was going to clarify which car is his.
Yeah. Oh man.
I can't believe people race these in it, because we tried racing them and they were too broken. You'd lose parts. And
yeah, I don't even.
The open wheel, you slide into somebody else in your tires and you both go flying.
Yep.
And there's no spare parts for these cars.
No, that's why I'm amazed they're racing them. That's awesome.
All right, I guess we're going to have to circle back to Big Den when he pops back on. So I'm going to stop his share and we'll go to Dewan. Oh, I can't even stop his. There we go. Okay. Dewan, go ahead, and then we'll get back to Big Den, hopefully. You're still muted, buddy.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I thought you were gonna go to Frank. I saw him in there.
Oh.
Anyway, this isn't official club stuff.
Hell with Frank.
No, I mean the positions changed between when we were doing the share to when we're doing.
Okay. Well, this isn't an official club stuff, but I had over the weekend a reunion for some of the top performing youth in Southern California in the bowling world. And I hosted the barbecue on Sunday and had about 50 people over here at my house for a barbecue. So obviously I kind of put them into my little, my living room, my makeshift living room. And they took part into some slot carving. So I'll just show you just two pictures that I had of that. I don't know if you can see these or not.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. So and we had about 4 or 5 shifts that just went through. Someone learned how to use the software and change the people in and out and stuff like that. So it was working pretty cool, and they had a great time. A lot of people were really into slot cars in the 60s and 70s. And they really, it was a good flashback for them, especially the guy right here in the black and white striped shirt. He was a real heavy slot car enthusiast in the early 60s.
You can see it on his face how excited.
Yeah, he actually ended up winning the race. It was a 4 heat race, on all 4 lanes and stuff. But
What was he inspired to want to try and get back in at all? Or?
Yeah, a couple of people are actually. They really are. So they were really amazed that we had it going on. So it was cool.
Well, way to spread the word. That's awesome.
Right. So that was the first picture, and I think I had that's just the second picture. That's all I have. Just showing that. Yeah,
race announcer shot.
Exactly. I was marshaling on the hardest corner, and I had one car that was problematic, and that's why the person's in last with 4 laps there. But anyway, they had fun. They had a ball. So that's all. I just want to.
Awesome. I put that in club corner. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
Look at that hefty net. He's expecting some cars to hit that.
Oh yes, I had that and the voting was down to 7.5 votes intentionally.
And I bet the net still came in handy.
Well, not in this case, but yeah, it kept the cars on the track. But yeah,
it's like you were having a good time. Look at that smile on Dewan's face.
I was going to say, you know what it reminds me of? It's like when you had your friends over after school to do slot cars. It's like the same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. All right. That's it for now.
All right, perfect. Thanks for sharing, Dewan. And Big Den was back a minute ago. Big Den, you still there?
Yeah. For some reason, my modem rebooted just as I was finishing the presentation, I think. So
go ahead and pull that last pick up with the Car Tricks cars, and we'll take off from there.
Oh, okay. Then, yeah, I'll just pop that back up.
You were right. You froze on us right between when you were figuring out which of the green cars to point to as your own.
Oh, okay, then right. I can
and we didn't get the answer, so we're all waiting on the edge of our seats to find out which green car is actually yours.
Bated breath. Bated breath.
Bated breath. Yep.
Right. Okay. So I'll go back and.
Should we circle back?
I'm just.
Does anybody else laugh when somebody says bated breath and they've just been drinking coffee or some kind of really weird thing, and you wonder about the spelling of bated?
I'm a grammar Nazi, so I never forget the spelling of bated. All right, now we can see that picture again, Big Den.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah. Some funny things go. Oh, okay. The screen. I can't see. I can't see my. Hang on. I can't see my screen for some reason. And you can see me, but I can't see me. So it looks.
You should be able to switch back to your picture viewing program. You won't close Zoom.
I can hear Zoom, but okay. So Zoom. I'm going to click Zoom there. It just comes to the. It just comes up to the.
if you're on Windows, just hit Alt and hold Alt while you hit the tab, and then switch to your photo viewer.
Yeah, I can see it on the bottom of the screen, all right, but I can't see the main screen in Zoom.
I mean, you only at this point you only need to be seeing your picture so you can point at things and talk about it.
Okay, right. Well, I've got the picture there. Right, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's me, the number 12 there. What I was saying was that actually I went down for the meeting expecting to run British touring cars, which the final round of that series, as I was a little bit disturbed when I sort of had to pull out a car that hadn't been touched for 2 years other than to put it into the box, and so I didn't perform very well with that one. So and then the next thing I moved on to was our Porsche Cup series. So you obviously wouldn't have seen that one before.
Nope.
Okay, so that's the end of it anyway. So I only had those last two pictures, and that was in Hobart last week. And I made the comment that these Ninko released these cars back in about 2004, I think, and a lot of the guys still had them from way back, or were able to procure some fairly cheaply over the years. And this series is going to run once a month for the course of the year. So it's
are those the angle winder ones?
Yeah, that's right, Dennis. I think
It's actually a nice car.
Yeah, I was going to say we race those every once in a while as IROC, and they're fun.
Yeah, they were one of the best of the Ninko angle winders, I think.
Yeah,
I love the one I have.
What's going on in the pits back there? The car upside down.
Where's that?
Right there.
There?
No.
That's a chassis by the looks of it. The underpart of the chassis.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think that's a car. I think it's a bit of scenery of some sort. I can't.
Oh, okay. I see it now.
Looks like the underframe of a plastic model or something.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, unless it's someone's, if it's a 3D print, it's a bit thick, they've got about 17 times too many layers by the look of that. But yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. I'll have to pay more attention next time I go down. Yeah. I'll send you an email, Frank. Okay, now I'll stop the share and someone else can pick up there. Okay.
All right. Thanks for sharing, Big Den.
And now my screen's back, so fine.
Yep.
Hey, Den, we were talking about that is it Cartrick class? You're racing those old cars?
Yeah, that's correct, Jeremy.
How are you guys getting parts for those? Like, do you guys worry about them breaking? Because those are hard to come by.
Well, most of them, I mean, mine's original. I bought it secondhand probably, 5 or 6 years ago. And yeah, these guys, I tell you, if people are putting them on eBay now, they're bringing premium prices, particularly if they're anywhere near mint. But mine's not in fairly good condition. I mean, I haven't had any trouble with it. What some of the guys have done, though, over the years, because the original motors were a bit, variable, most of the other guys down south have replaced the standard motor with the BWA motor of some description. So I haven't, because I was sort of, I don't know where to get a BWA motor from.
That maybe you guys had an inside line for spare parts or something. But
yeah, well, I think when the chap was the BWA guy in Canada somewhere, and Phil down there, the convener of the group. I think he brought up a whole bunch, way back, and they just replaced them. But
yeah, nowadays the Michael Turner motor is probably the one, or I think there are a couple of other ones that are similar to what the BWA motor was.
Yeah, well, some of the Predators, and what's the other one? Is the Predator, and there's another one. That's they're fairly cheap. Double-ended ones, so you can use them either in can drive or end bell drive. There's Predator and there's something else. I forget what it's called. Anyway, that'll do me for a while, fellas. I'll let someone else take the floor.
All right, thanks, Big Den. And let's do Jim. No, I'm kidding. Let's do Frank. Go ahead, Frank.
No, it doesn't matter.
I know.
This isn't a club per se, but it is from Home Racing World. Harry Wise has a challenge going all the time called the Brass Am Challenge. And I saw it a few weeks ago and I thought, interesting. I just might want to build a car and send it into Harry and see how it'll do. Well, I had an old Camaro Scalectrix with a messed up chassis. So I don't know if you can see that or not. So I took that and cut it up a little bit. There, is that better?
Yep.
And cut the chassis, cut the chassis up because you have to take the front and the back off to put it back onto the body. So I took that one, added a few numbers to it, a driver, and also let me get the chassis. I don't have the car back from him yet, or I'd show you the actual car. And it's a very simple chassis that called a stinker chassis, I guess, or something similar. And I think I fared fairly well. I was only behind his car by 3/100ths of a second.
Wow.
And he does that, and then he features it on his channel, and it was really cool to do that. And actually, I'm starting to gather parts. He has a summer challenge going on with 3 different classes this summer in July. So I'm starting to gather parts to build cars for that too. And again, it's a very simple chassis. It's nothing like what Dennis makes or Chris Walker makes or all those fancy chassis. But
It's a hell of a nice motor bracket, isn't it?
It does. That was a Samson Classics motor bracket. That's true. And I'm going to get the 2 for the next 2 from Dennis as well.
Awesome. If you want to put a link to Harry's YouTube channel, if you have that handy, stick that in the chat, and I'll make sure that's in the description on YouTube.
Alrighty.
If not,
I'm jealous, Frank.
Pardon?
I'm jealous. I want to do that so bad. I don't know why, but I just haven't gotten finished yet.
Gotcha.
But I'm going.
What's nice is as long as you make the chassis square and get the wheels at the right, distance apart, you can't go wrong.
True.
And that's basically when you have a car ready to send in, you send it in, and Harry does some hot laps and gets the best time kind of thing. And...
Exactly. Yeah. And then what I did too, I mean, I put in stamps so he could mail my car back. So because there's no need for him to have the cost of that, And I think it was like $5.25 worth of stamps I put in there, and should get the car back sometime this week, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, look good, Frank. I watched Harry's video and I said, I know that bloke,
Cool. Good.
Yeah, that's kind of a fun idea. I'm surprised that I missed it, but it's basically just an ongoing proxy,
right?
Ongoing single host proxy. So
exactly.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, definitely put a link in there if you can find it.
Okay.
Sounds like we're ready to move on. All right, let's get to Mike. You have the floor, sir.
Had to unmute myself. Well, I had an interesting week as far as the racing goes. I managed to lose the race and win the race at the same time. I came across the finish line first, but I didn't realize that I had run out of fuel. So for 2 laps, I went on, why the hell isn't it finishing? I'm done. And the guy in 3rd place won because both the 2nd and 1st place guys ran out of fuel.
Don't you have a low power for when you're out of fuel or have other problems?
With magless cars, this is an adjustment. And
yeah.
I'm making one now. With magless cars, you can't really tell. But I ran out of fuel almost exactly a quarter of a lap away from the end.
Yeah.
So, but it worked out pretty well because everybody won a race that day. And the only other thing is that we did the Thunder Slot cars last, and I'll tell you, with the suspension on those things, they are such a joy to drive. I mean, they're not as fast as magnet cars because you're not just be able to barrel them around, but they're easy to drive and just they're real even all the way across. I had two Lola T70s, one coupe and one roadster, and my McLaren Mark 6, I think it is. And there was thousandths of a second between the three. and it was real close racing. It wasn't till the end that one of the guys screwed up and lost an extra lap as a result of it, but it was pretty amazing. So, but that's all I got. But it was pretty interesting to both win and lose the race at the same time.
Yeah, that's funny. And you really had no other choice but to just keep going, because it was the last lap. You thought you might have had enough fuel to finish. Pulling in to refuel would have been pointless because you would have, lost.
Well, the funniest thing though is having the guy in third place 2 laps down, and he ended up winning. That's the weird thing, because he had plenty of fuel, and both of us ran out at almost the same time. So it was like, and we're trying to figure out what's going on, and we didn't think to look at the fuel. We will now.
So it wasn't just you; it was you and the second.
No,
place
it was me and one of the other guys.
Wow. That's called cutting it a little bit too close.
Oh yeah.
But that's part of the challenge and part of the fun of racing with simulated fuel and all that stuff. Yeah. Sometimes that happens. And when we race at Russ's track with fuel, because just like with digital, it takes time to refuel. So you're like, oh man, there's only a few seconds left. I'm going to run out of fuel as soon as I cross under the line. So I'm just hold it and hope that your car coasts farther than the other guy who also runs out of fuel coasts. And there were several races that were decided by how far the cars coasted after running out of fuel.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Lots of fun. Thanks for sharing, Mike.
Oh, and as an addendum, you remember I was talking earlier about how my Ferrari FXX ran faster than the other one?
Yeah.
I missed the magnet. No wonder it. I opened it up just a little while ago and I went, oh, that explains it. So,
and isn't the FXX one of their older cars? Like, they haven't released one in several years, right?
That's the newer Ferrari. I think it's a couple years old though.
Oh, okay. I guess they're still releasing.
Yeah, it's relatively new, but not great. So
yeah, and I hate how they put magnets under the motor half the time. So you got to completely take the motor out just to get the magnet out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll make a difference.
Well, it's back to square one with that one.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, thanks, Mike. And Jim, you are next, sir. What happened?
Well, I ventured down to electric. Yay! And they had their big Can-Am race, and Electric Dreams has become the place to go in California for the highly competitive end of slot car racing. And this is the track. If you haven't seen it, it's one of the best tracks I've ever run on for this type of cars. The numbers are not the turn numbers; those are the marshal positions. Marco, and I'm sure Dennis has helped a lot in putting this program together. They've thought of everything, where marshals go. They're labeled on the track where you go and everything else. So there's just a lot of little things that they've done. It makes it a real pleasure to go down there. So I went down. I prepared 2 Can-Am cars, both Thunder slots. And those of you that know me know that I'm kind of more into the racing end than the modeling end, just because that's my nature. But in this particular case, Oscar was a little jealous of Bruce over there with the extra seat belts. Helmet's not quite period correct, probably, but he's got the seat belts from IndyCals, and they go very nicely on these cars. The Willens decal is actually a separate decal from the seatbelt itself. And somebody on Facebook asked me, where did you get the Williams decals for the seatbelts? I go, those are Willens. That's the name of the seatbelt manufacturer. And so those are the 2 cars. I changed a few things because the rules down there are a bit different than ours. They allow ball bearings. They allow lightweight axles. You see a little bit of lead under the front axle. That's because the axle is a gram lighter than the solid steel axle. So I added a gram to the guide. So I didn't change the overall weight of the car in the front. And you can kind of see my weighting layout there of how this car is set up. I tried a couple new things. Michael kind of inspired me. This is not, I asked Marco about this because suspension is not allowed. But he said the foam washers are okay. That's dampening, that's not suspension. And so he allowed that. And so you can see the play I've got. It's about 20 thousandths before it actually hits the foam. And this, along with using the screws to hold the body up, and the body slides very nicely forward and backward on the chassis now. So it isolates the body, and the car was extremely smooth after these two extra modifications. We ran ball bearings, stock Shark 21.5 was the spec motor. I ran a 12-30 gear ratio, and the car was just absolutely planted. There's that weight in the front again that I added to offset the lighter front axle. The overall car is right around 68 grams. It doesn't have the body screws in it when I took this, so 67.9 plus the body screws. So right at 68 grams, which is pretty light for a car, for my cars. And the car was, needless to say, the car was good. Drivers meeting, we had 20 people. Great turnout again. There's the grid. Interesting, predominantly Thunderslot. Few NSRs. The 3 Carreras and the Scale Electrics are what they call the Can-Am Light, which runs together. They don't separate them on the track, but it's designed for newcomers and beginners, and they are allowed magnets, but it's a stock Scale Electrics Carrera style car, so it's not a Thunderslot or NSR. They ran the mains. Well, first we qualified. So here's the park for May. The car's getting ready to qualify. Once qualifying was done, because we had 20 cars, he split it up into 4 or 5 car mains, so A, B, C, and D. But you could win from any main. That just kind of sorted you theoretically among your group in terms of overall speed. If you had turned the fastest lap in the D main, you'd be the overall winner. But getting to the results, after the B main, the local guy, Ed Shore, was on top. Rick Joachim, who some of you know is a 5-time HO freight champion, was a half lap behind. So you can see those of us that sat out for the A were waiting for this. And so we knew what we had to shoot for. The difference between Ed and Rick was a half a lap. In the race, Rick had 2 offs, Ed had 1 off. And that was the difference in first and second going into the last main. And I was very fortunate. I had a great car and I drove a pretty good race and ended up winning the race with 1 off in 18 minutes. And so, again, I want to thank, I know Dennis has a big hand in this, and Marco down in Electric Dreams. Great place to race, a lot of fun, extremely competitive. I'll be going down there as often as I can to race.
Congratulations, great win.
So that's it.
Jim, what did you have for tires? What was those NSR tires?
I was running stock Thunderslot wheels with NSR 5206 tires.
All right. And did you use your break-in? Didn't you add that video about the break-in? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Incidentally, there's been a lot of discussion lately on inserts, running foam inserts in the tires. I set up a set of tires, identical, 5206 Thunderslot wheels, 1 with insert and 1 without insert.
That's the foam to get rid of the air gap?
Okay. Yeah, to get rid of the air gap. I put the foam in, it's Thunderslot foam, Thunderslot sells it. And then I turned it down on my tire truer so it was sticking up over the ridges, maybe 10 thou, just minimally over the ridge. So it didn't do a whole lot. On the track, the tires with the insert rolled the fast corners really good. But when you came off the corner, they didn't have the side bite. So I am not a fan of inserts at this particular case. This is the only time I've ever tried it. So in this particular case, the non-insert tires were better. They had more side bite coming off the corners. So it's definitely a work in progress because it's just one track, one car. You never know what's going to happen, but that's my experience so far with foam inserts.
Dennis, talking about foam inserts, where do you put yours on your cars? He was 10. You said, Jim, you said 10 thousandths.
He's kind of eyeball, but yeah, just minimal over. Yeah.
For some reason, we're not hearing Dennis, even though he's not muted. Did your mic unplug or something?
Is that better?
Yeah,
there he is.
Sorry, the jack was unplugged. Yeah, 10 thousandths is about what I do. Okay. 20 thousandths on diameter, bigger than the overall diameter of the flanges.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
But what it does, part of the reason that you don't get the side bite is that it crowns the tire ever so slightly, right? Even once you trued it, you probably still have a little bit of crowning, and that may be why it's not giving the side bite. That you're not getting exactly the same pressure on the outside of the tire as you are in the middle.
May I engage with Jim on the subject?
Yeah.
Can I ask what wheel you were using, Jim?
Stock Thunderslot.
Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that one. I use the NSR 8005, which is a 17.3 ridge size. But what I do is take the ridges and reduce the diameter. I take them down to about 17.1. And then I put the foam in between, and I take the foam down to 17.15, or as close as I can get to that.
Well, the Thunderslots, the actual number on them, I think is 14.8.
Yeah, so it's a smaller wheel in the first place.
Yeah, it's a smaller wheel.
Yeah. So my personal experience is the ridge, it depends on how high the ridge is. On the NSR wheel, I think the ridge is about 1.5 millimeter, the actual height of one ridge. That means the outer diameter would be. That means the outside of the tire bead seat would be about 15 something, still bigger than you. So I knock the center ridge down to about 1 millimeter height, and then I fill the gap with foam, and I go virtually flush. I don't know how 20 thou is. Can you convert that for me?
Half a millimeter.
Half a millimeter. In my opinion, that's too much, too high above the ridges.
That's on diameter, though. You're talking a 1/4 millimeter above in terms of shear height.
Yes. Yeah, okay, that's correct. I still think that's too much. I go almost level. Like I measure the diameter of the aluminium, and then I install the insert and true that down, and then I measure the diameter of the foam. And the difference is 0.1. So there's nearly no crowning of the tire. But this is my experience is based on building for a specific tire, and it's not the NSR that you're using. So I would say it's a horses for courses situation with your wheel, with your tire. The magic ingredient might be different, and I certainly wouldn't attempt to build with any crowning taking place, because if you then trued the tire, you'd be cutting the center thinner than the material above the walls, and I don't think that's the right way to go.
Yeah,
so I would have to go and try and apply.
I'm not saying one way wrong, but in this case, it didn't work.
Yeah,
it's not that it didn't work. When I drove the car with inserts, it felt better, but it didn't turn a faster lap time.
Yes, yeah, I actually read about that. You'd written about that before. I knew you were going to speak about it tonight. It's strange because you also use the phrase side bite, and I would say that the requirement for side bite takes place on the entry to the turn and through the middle of the turn. And what your description lacks is what I would call forward traction, the ability to push the car forward off the corner without losing the tail. So I wouldn't call that side bite. I would call that traction, as in push forward when you get back in the power.
Okay, well, but now we're
telling you
semantics. We're talking about.
I'm not telling you that you're incorrect or anything, but I think what you've described is that the sideways load capability of the tire with the insert, as in through the beginning of the corner and through the middle, was adequate.
In the large radius turns on power, the insert tire better. But coming out of the corner, it was looser.
Well, you see, my circumstances are quite the opposite to yours. Every time I build one of my tires on an air system wheel, I always get a divot in the center. Always, it's just a function of my control tires and the wheels that are available to me. I've used both NSR and slotted air wheels.
I don't have that. I've never had a divot in.
Well, mine have always. It's just a function of the rules that we're running under. I guess my tires always seem to be divoted when I build them that way, and so therefore I always put the insert in, and I've never had the opportunity to run an NSR air wheel without foam.
Would be, are you putting the inserts on to the divot?
Sorry, Jim, say that again.
Are you insert in the tire to get rid of the divot?
I'm putting the insert on the wheel as you normally would, and it actually cures the divot problem.
But is the divot a problem, or is it just a cosmetic problem?
Now that's the question, isn't it? I think if I was to do the same style of treatment that you do, I might get that divot back out.
But I'm not sure if the divot's anything. It may just be a cosmetic thing.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting to me then is that I try running them anyway.
I would. That's why I did what I did. I do it back to back as close as possible. Again, everybody's result, and this on this particular given this track with this set of tires, the insert is good. Doesn't mean I'm not going to try them again. But particular instance, they were not.
Yeah, no, and you've given me something I really ought to try, because I'm speaking from one side of the experience, and it's the opposite side to yourself. And this is what's great about this experience of the chat, that we can compare notes and.
Yeah, well, that happened before. In one of the videos I did, and we've talked about this before, forming the bubble with that little, the crown on it with. And there was somebody on Facebook on Home Racing World says, I was crowning my tire because I oiled it too much. Do I need to true that off? And I'm screaming, no, because that works.
Yeah.
And for cosmetic reasons or trying to overthink it, this doesn't work, or this doesn't work in real life. So I need to, and it's not real life.
Well, coming from my side of the equation at the moment, I have one of the tire running the wheels together device in the mail on the way to me. So I'm going to try and experiment with that and see. I'll let you know when I know anything.
There's one other interesting question here to me, if I can jump in. The difference between the height of the flanges on the Thunderslot wheels, the relative height as opposed to the bead diameter. They're a lot shallower than the NSR wheel, right? But you're using an NSR tire, so the molding of the tire is molded with a big step in it for the big difference in the sizes of the NSR wheel. And now you're going to take that and put it onto a Thunderslot wheel, where those flanges and therefore the insert inside it's probably not even reaching the inside of the tire as it's mounted.
This speaks to the reason why I like to turn down the diameter of my NSR wheel, because I'm putting a slotted tire over it.
But I think that the difference in size between the flange and the bead on a NSR wheel and a slotted wheel are the same.
Okay, about a 1.5 millimeter flange is.
I think
that
they're
what
1.25,
but the Thunderslot is significantly.
The Thunderslot's significantly less. It's about 3/4 of a millimeter, as I recall.
Okay.
So do you have any Thunderslot, Wayne?
I don't.
I'm just interested in what Jim thinks about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been talking. We thought we were talking apples to apples, but now we're talking apples. We realize we're talking apples to oranges.
Well, this is what we
have. What I want to try, and I'm not sure if I can make it down for the next race, GT race, which is probably going to be mostly NSRs, is I want to put my Thunderslot wheels that I just ran last week that I know absolutely hooked up and put it on a GT car instead of.
Yeah.
And if I don't do that, my friend Rick Jocham will.
Somebody will.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're going to be privy to some interesting news next week. I think we're okay to move on. Frank, did you still have your hand up, or did you have something new?
Yeah, when Mike was talking about his the Thunderslot and the suspension, or the foam inserts or foam for the suspension, I've put him on my Thunder slot, and tonight I'm going to be defending my non-mag title at Big Lou's, so we'll see how it does. And I'll let you know next week.
Has you've raced that car without that suspension method?
Correct.
And it's been pretty good, or?
Yeah, I've won the last 4 non-mag races in a row.
Nice.
So like I said, I'm defending.
We went over there. We went over there after the race Saturday at Dreams, and I got to see it and run on that track.
At Big Lou's?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 4-lane Scalectric Sport, about 125 feet long.
Big.
Yeah, it's huge. It's fun though.
And I was reminded again why I don't like magnet cars.
They're definitely a challenge, but this is in the non-mag class, and that it's the only one I've been successful in.
So Frank, what's the Vegas line on you repeating as Victor?
I probably I don't understand odds, but probably not very good, because now everybody's been chasing me, and it's been a while since I've raced there. So,
has anybody else cottoned on to the braid method that you tried out?
I showed in. They now nobody. Oh. I use it.
Well, hopefully you hold that lead then.
We'll see. It'll be either way. Did we skip John Crawley?
No, I just went back to you real quick because I want to make sure that you didn't. All right, thanks for lowering your hand. Now I won't confuse that again. And Mr. Crawley, you are next, sir.
Thank you very much. This was from the Out of the Box gang the other day. There were 7 of us on a track that is about 130 feet, 2-lane track. And we raced polycars. Well, actually we had 2 groups of races of the 7. The first set was polycars. This was my polycar that I developed and raced. And then I made one for Mike Childs. He did not have one, so he raced my Alpha, and he won the race with those. I should have switched cars on him. And like I said, we had 7. You got 20 laps on a match racing, and then you counted points. And then at the end of the session, the 2 top points ran for the championship. And then after that was done, and it just so happened that I had one of these cars with me, everybody had a Scalectric Dallara. And so we did a Scalectric Dallara race. These are, I don't know if y'all remember these are probably maybe 5 or 6 years old, but I won first with that, the 711 Honda. I forget who the driver was in that originally. Anyway, so that was what we were doing. And we used the same rotation.
It was Tony Kanaan.
Tony Kanaan, thank you. You're right. Yes, it was. We used 20 laps.
I used to race one of those Indy cars, and I used to race it in 2007. So it's at least 15 years.
Yeah, so it's a long time. And our only problem with it is you can't get parts for them. So we tend to be a little bit careful. And we have a rule we used the rule on the polycar and on the Dallaras that you got 2 offs and then you were out. So if you went off twice, you were disqualified. You went on to the next race. So you had
John,
to.
If it's any help, we have a lot of them, and I've got molds for the rear wings and front wings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to race anything, because if you've got an existing part, we can always make parts and use them, man.
Yeah.
That's why we quit racing those.
This was
quit racing those because you'd have to buy a new wing like every month or so, because you'd lose the right side, and then you don't have a left side, or the other guy rushes left side, and you'd have a right side. You couldn't put them together.
I had a bunch of cars that were glued together that way.
The black piece of cloth that holds the front axle, it has a hook and a screw to hold it into place into the chassis, and you always snap the hook off.
Yeah.
And because the suspension components actually support the front axle, suddenly you've got a front axle with its own steering.
It's all wobbly.
Yeah.
John, make those out of?
If it's any consolation, that's exactly how the real IndyCar teams ran, by the way.
Well, this was the Out of the Box gang, and it was our first time that the 5 of us plus 2 visitors ever ran the polycars. And we had normally been running the NSR and the Scale Alto in open wheel racing. And so someone said, let's do polycar this week. And no magnets, just straight right out of the box polycars. And I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun. They're a handful, but side-by-side racing was a lot of fun with them.
Quick for John, you said you make those wings. Do you make them out of resin, or do you make them? Is there any way to make those out of a squishier, softer material?
No, resin's fine, because if you do make it out of sort of like, like a Vitaflex 40, like a urethane, they wibble and wobble all over the place, and you're better just break them and make more.
I had the solution for the standard wing, which was actually cut through it with a Dremel, and then I glued a piece of rubber, because the wing supports are so close together. You can actually glue a block of rubber in the gap between, and that gives you a flex joint in the middle of your wing uprights. It worked for me.
But you've lost all scale authenticity then.
Yeah, but you're racing, aren't you?
But our rules with the out of the box gang is like, you literally take it out of the box as it was and race it just like that. And it tends to make a pretty, you can do tire truers to get your tires as close to square as you want them. No tape, no doctoring of the tires whatsoever after that. And that's about it. So it's you and gravity.
Yeah, and those Indy cars run quite well. I bought a whole bunch of those, and the AG, the defunct series, what was it, AGP 1 or whatever the heck it was, because there were stores that were just selling them, them off.
It was
A1GP,
I think.
A1GP.
A1GP.
Yep,
that's right.
Yeah, and they run really well, especially with kids. They think it's a Formula One car. You go and you run the wheels off.
I think Jeremy had a question.
I was just asking, when you run straight out of the box, the problem with our club was that sometimes you get a car, it'd be the same exact car, but maybe it was made on a Friday versus a Monday, and you'd have one car with so then you wind up buying another one, and then pretty soon I realized stock racing was getting more expensive than just tuning and truing. So what have you guys run into?
You know what? Like this past Saturday, it was all very close. The guy that won the race with this car said it was probably the best driving car he had ever taken out of the box and raced. There was another car. I brought this to. I didn't make this one. Andy did, but I brought this because I wanted to test it against some of my other poly cars, because he did so well, but he came off the track twice and got disqualified. So, but he was leading by like 2 laps at one time. So we do have that disparity between, a car right out of the box can be really great, one might not be so great. So it's just how well can you drive?
I'd like to agree with Jeremy on what he said there, because blueprinting a car is much more expensive than modifying. So if you tell me you've got a race an out of the box spec car, it will cost me much more to build a car that works well, that meets that spec, than it would if I just bought better equipment for the car.
Right.
Much more. So I'm not somebody who buys into that whole thing about out of the box cars are all equal, because they're not by a long way. And I don't believe that better drivers have an automatic right to win races, which is something that seems to run through.
Well, they certainly didn't at this race. I think what we've got to was you could get a poly car right out of the box for, I don't know, what is it, $50, something like that, or less. And, we had 10 of them, and you got to pick, the 7 of us got to pick from the 10, and it was pretty close racing that way. And no one had to be working on cars and building cars and doing all that kind of stuff. If we kept the polycar series going, we probably would want to do some doctoring to it, because I think there's some issues with polycar, like the front wheels and everything, that I would want to retune.
All right, good stuff, Mr. Crawley. And I guess we are ready for Mr. Sampson. What you got, Dennis?
Sorry, it took me a bit of time to unmute. Actually, I wanted to ask Wayne a question. About a year ago, just before the full-size Formula One series started, you talked about setting up a fantasy Formula One league, and we all told you which driver and which team we thought we would support, and I've never heard the results of that. Now, Frank, talk about my memory.
That's ringing a bell for me, but it was a very dim. It's a very dim sound. Wayne, do you remember the fantasy F1 conversation?
Wayne's on the spot now.
Oh God, has Wayne disappeared?
You might not realize he's muted.
Is he even still on the call?
Yeah, he's.
Now all of a sudden we need Wayne to talk and he can't. What?
That never
It'll take him 52
Welcoming
minutes to
it.
recover.
Come on, Wayne. He's probably going crazy trying to figure out why he can't unmute.
All I can say, Dennis, is perhaps there were other times you should have asked that very question.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, in
I don't know
that
what's
vein, I
happened.
just finished watching Drive to Survive, and the whole thing pissed me off again.
Yeah, it does. Motor racing people, scum of the earth. Don't mess with motor racing people.
Yeah,
They're just
maybe Wayne's just left his machine on and gone
That's possible too.
on a wander.
Yeah.
No, he just doesn't want to. He just doesn't want to answer your question.
I've just been thinking about it a couple of times as I've been getting ready for the Formula One season and thinking to myself, hang on a moment. Wayne had this whole deal last year, and we all said we would, he wanted us to choose a driver that we thought would do, the winner would be the guy who got the driver that had the biggest change in point score or something like that. And the same with the teams. And so I was just wondering whether he'd actually ever worked it out. Anyway,
did you guys place bets on that? I mean, did anybody place any money?
We didn't put any money on it. No.
Well, that's why Wayne's forgotten about it. Right?
That's why. Yeah.
All right.
You mean he kept the money? Is that what you're saying?
Well, there was no money. That's
was
why
no
he
money.
He was
I
trying
think-
to figure
I
out
think-
how to turn it into crypto.
I think Wayne is just the equivalent of a Senate investigation was I do not recall, Senator.
Yeah. Oh, God.
All right, now that we've shamed Wayne into answering once he finally hears this, Jim has his virtual hand up. What's up, Jim?
I have a question for Alan. Again, that short-term memory, I'm pretty sure it was Alan about 2 months ago who was having a problem with one of the cars popping the slot on the straightaway.
Yeah, I think that was Alan.
And we gave him we tried to give him a bunch of hopefully useful suggestions. And I was just wondering if you ever figured that or solved that problem.
Yeah, okay. I went through, I don't know, we must have spent 20 minutes talking through that.
Yeah.
On that chat. And I have tried all sorts of things to get that particular car not to straight line D-slot. And whether I angle I pressed a chassis in hot water so that it angled the guide up. I did all the things that we went through, and nothing worked with that car. So that car is now in my box of bits. I've just given up with that car. And that particular car was a Skelectric PCR chassis, Sierra. I've completely given up with it. I've just come to the conclusion that that particular car cannot stand the kind of motor that I'm putting in it, and that I have to go in different directions. And if you look on Slot Racer Online, there's a recent thread called the Cut and Shut Camaro. And the Cut and Shut Camaro is my different direction for that. So the answer was I've tried all of those things, angling the guide, fettling the braids, putting washers underneath, lifting the wheels, dropping the wheels at the front. None of it made any difference. Changing the guide.
Alan, remind us what kind of track you're running on.
It's a Skelectric Sport 6-lane.
Okay.
That's been painted, that we use urethane tires on.
Got you. Okay.
Great big long straight. And I think most of the issue is that because it's a long straight, it kind of goads you into using much higher RPM motors. So we're really stretching the speed limits of the cars. When I think about it, it's surprising that most of them do stay on the track. Once you get above 11 meters per second or something, You really are. It's like the sound barrier for a little piece of plastic, and it's surprising they work at all. But this particular one didn't, and nothing I tried would make it work. And now it's just been stripped apart, so I just thrown it in the box, never to be seen again, because I just can't be bothered with that thing.
Did you
Ellen,
ever
was
try
that at the beginning or the end of the straight?
straight?
About 3/4 of the way down.
Do you think it's possible that the tires were at that high in RPM, were starting to expand and possibly push it off?
Generally, urethane's quite a solid substance, and Ortmans don't generally expand that much compared to, say, foam rubber tires. I think it's unlikely that it's the rear tires expanding. I just think that the whole car, including the body, which is quite high center of gravity, and it's a Skelex trick. What was I expecting? They were never designed to do those kind of speeds. So that's the crux is, I took something that was never designed to do those kind of speeds, pushed it to its limit, and then when it didn't do what I thought, struggled to figure out why. But the truth is, there's no way. It's like a Model T Ford. If you drop it off a cliff to do 80 miles an hour, it's going to hit the deck, and you're going to say, "Hey, what happened to that car? It's all smashed to pieces." And that's what it is. It's just.
Did you say it was a Sierra?
Yeah.
So did you miss the Ford notice that said no Sierra should ever be turned into a slot car?
Well, yeah, I mean, no Sierra should have ever been, period. No Sierra should have been.
True.
So I take it a lower RPM motor was not a choice to make then on that car.
No, I mean, one of the peculiarities about London slot car is they have 3 categories of motor, A, B, and C. And the A motors are the sports cars, which are, angle winder up to 40k, big motors. And the C ones are meant to be small can, low RPM. The mid range is the B motors up to 25k RPM. But the odd thing is the C motors for the things like the Trans Am, you can use a long can motor that's unlimited in line. So you've got cars that can be very, very fast, but difficult to control. So I've never subscribed to, less is more. I always want more. More is more. So that's what I do until it breaks, and then I'll back off a little bit.
And it up to 11.
Or throw it in the box.
I'll go not to 11. I'll go to 15, or I'll go to 20. And then if I have to back off to 17 to get it there, then that's what I'll do, So 11's a start.
I was watching I think it was chat number 23, and Chris Walker was explaining a race that he was in, and he asked the organizers if he could go with a slower motor. And they said yes. And then after the race, they banned slower motors because he wiped the street with them.
Yeah. These are anecdotes. I'd have liked to have seen that, I mean,
the whole driver dependent, though. If it was a proxy that he was talking about, then it's you have a driver rate that's maybe less. I don't know.
Yeah, Chris was walking. It was a regular race.
One of the things that happened to us this weekend, I didn't mention it, but I had always used on my track plungers. I never had the pistol grip. And at this track, they had pistol grips to use. And you could set your braking and everything. And that was quite a learning experience right there of trying to adjust to that. I really liked that. That was a lot of fun. So I think I'm going to try to put a digital analog system onto my on my track and have those kind of triggers.
Yeah, quality controllers improve the experience of the race.
Yeah.
So much. It's unbelievable, and I've heard people say things like, electronic controllers and pulse width modulation with adjustable brakes, that's just cheating. It's not. It improves it. And it not only improves it, but it means you don't have to buy 4 controllers with different rheostat ratings and different braking just by one controller, and it works, and it just makes the night work. I mean, there have been nights before I went to an electronic controller where I took my controller and I just threw it in the bin. I just threw it right in the bin with all the trash, the beer, and the food, and can't be bothered with that anymore, because a bad controller will ruin your night, definitely.
Yeah, I would say that it's hard between a good controller and good power supply, variable power supply, but probably controller is like the best money you're going to spend on the hobby. And then, adjustable power supply for your own track. But yeah.
Don't be that new guy. Don't be the new guy that shows up at the club and they talk me into buying the $300 controller and he still loses. Because I've seen that happen too.
Yeah, and just kind of as a note to anybody who's still using set controllers on their analog track, I'm not saying, but don't go buying $300-400 DeFalcos from Third Eyes and things like that. All you need is sensitivity and brake, and for it to be an electronic controller, meaning it's not a fixed ohm resistance controller, and you'll have a whole nother. It's like a new hobby at that point. All your cars will drive better.
Well, even changing from your thumb to your index finger, you have more control and feel with your index finger than you do with your thumb.
Yeah, forego one car, and instead of buying 2 cars next month, buy a controller, and all of your cars will be brand new cars.
It reminded me of my RC days, which was much easier to handle doing this than doing that. So yeah, that's what I've done. I've ordered a couple of control. Yeah, they're just like that. Yeah, exactly.
Just a Professor Motor Pro.
Regular old, it's 2 knobs.
I think they're like $100 to $150, I think.
Right.
Yeah, you can spend about $150 on, that'll cover a Professor Motor 2-knob controller and shipping. I believe True Speed offers a similar controller. DS offers a similar controller. They're not. I wouldn't call them low end, but they're low on the scale of hobbyist / competition controllers. But that's all you need, really.
How about a Ramjet? Anybody have familiar with the Ramjet?
Yeah, I have a Ramjet that I use for Carrera Digital. I prefer that over the plungers for sure.
Right.
I mean, you're limited as when it's a digital system, you're limited, as to what the digital system can make use of as far as controller input.
Right.
But
I've been trying to get a Franken slot for over a year and a half now.
I can't find them.
Can't find them.
And I just found out how expensive they were. I thought they would be closer to Professor Motor slotted type expense, but they're like $180.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I don't care if I could just get one, but I can't get one.
Yeah. Yeah, I really need that project I keep talking about. Just clip your Carrera controller into a handle that gives you trigger control, pushes the plunger.
There you go.
The trigger.
You could print one, couldn't you?
That's what I'm talking about. Design it and print it. It would be fully 3D printed. You just clip your Carrera controller in the top, and now you got a trigger controller.
You make one, and I'll try it out as a prototype.
That reminds me so much of what used to happen in the radio control way back in the 70s, where the first guys were running those. It used to be a Futaba Japanese transmitter that had a big steering wheel on the front, but it had these funny little side connections on the side of it, and it was really difficult to move to operate the throttle and brakes, because it was like just this little slide switch on the side of this big gray box. And so what I think it was John Thorpe did was they made a conversion where they mounted a Rusket slot car hand controller handle and trigger on the back of this big box with a whole set of bell cranks around the side of the box to operate this little slide switch that was the throttle and brakes. And that's how the first real steering wheel and trigger controllers started in radio control.
I would imagine a lot of slot car designers, they don't have like an ergonomics professor on staff to it's just like, let's get this controller out and make some money.
I think you can definitely say, if you look at slot.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That's what we used to do back in the that's probably 79, 81, right in that era. It was a controller with a bell crank going over to the throttle, which was
that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, this is actually a later and so yeah, that's kind of how it evolved.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Well, and you could pick up the evening news on the radio at the same time.
Well, I drove with one of those. I remember it.
Yeah.
The BBC from America.
Well,
why would you buy a Frankenslot? Because the truss speeds are much cheaper and they do the same.
The Frankenslots are wireless.
Yeah. Okay. Of course. Yeah.
Hey, Dennis, back to the RC controllers. When one of the guys from Japan came over, we ended up going to pistol grip style controllers.
Yeah.
You know, they were built away. One of the guys from Japan came over, had one of the pistol grip controllers with a steering wheel, and they'd taken the steering wheel off and put a lever on it.
Oh, wow.
Sticks are actually faster than a stone. And if you can drive them that way, you have faster control of the car.
Yeah,
Well,
Better Kalari will tell you that.
Yep. Yeah, Masami here could drive it with his toes, which was kind of
true,
mind-boggling.
I was watching a thing on the computer the other day on one of the races from France, the RC races, and the two guys that were in the lead were still using radios with sticks.
Mm-hmm.
I was going,
I've stood next to Masami Hirosaka in an A final at World Championships 1, and he thrusts his controller through his stomach, and his legs actually shake while he's driving.
Hey, Dennis, Wayne's back.
Yeah, Wayne's
sorry,
back.
I had to leave.
I had a question for you.
Oh, sorry, I'm here. I'm all ears now.
All right. Okay, so we'll repeat the question. About a year ago, right at the beginning of the Formula One season,
don't go there. Yeah, the answer is it's time to do it again.
No,
I've got
the results from last year.
I thought this was all post-chat. I've got all the results. I didn't think it was part of the slot car chat, so I wasn't going to bring it into this. There you are. That's why you heard from me on that. I've got the results, and they're on a PowerPoint presentation, all prepared, but I haven't got my laptop, and I'm at work, so I haven't been able to bring it forth, so to speak.
All right, we'll let's just call this a reminder.
Step away for 5 seconds. All right. Well, Alan has his virtual hand up. Go ahead, Alan.
Oh yeah, okay. Last weekend was Swindon Swap Meet, and swap meets are a big thing in the UK. And you know, we go to these swap meets, and you look around, you chat with people you haven't seen for a year or so, and you peruse boxes and boxes full of plastic that's rubbish that you don't want to buy, but you end up buying something. But at Swindon Swap Meet, I found an absolute gem, and I found this Black Arrow Ferrari. It's got everything. It's everything is Lexan. It's got the orange chassis. It's got full suspension. You know, it's a really, really nicely built car. It's got a rubber wing. This is a proper race thoroughbred. And I saw this car in this box between a bunch of Scale Electrics to the right and a bunch of Scale Electric to the left, and recognized it.
And you bought it for Wayne?
Yeah, you wish. It's got Ninka wheels on it, which are these lovely 5-star wheels. And the reason I recognized it is because it's got urethane tires on it, and because of the way it's been built. And this is actually the car that holds the GT lap record at London Slot Car. This is one of John Secchi's cars. Now, John died 2 years ago, and his cars have all been spread to the 4 winds. You know, we thought we'd never find any of them again. So I bought this for £40 at Swindon Swap Meet. You know, and it's got hollow axles. It's got everything. I mean, and I've tried it now. You know, I've tried it last Tuesday, and it is an absolutely gorgeous car, and it is everything I'd want. Sometimes you have good days, and sometimes you have bad days. The day I found this was a good day.
Yeah, that's great. It's good that John's car is landed with someone who can appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it, you know, and above this car were mint and, you know, boxed and mint scale electric selling at sort of 50 quid. You know what, this for 40? You know, it's just there in the tray next to all the garbage. I'm thinking, really, some people go to swap meets and they must have seen this and not really realize what it is. But I see this as, you know, I see all the other stuff to the right and left as like Toys R Us violins. I see this as a Stradivarius, and I thought, yes, I'm having that. So
to say nothing of just being a memento of John.
Yeah, but you know,
he was a great guy.
John was never a kind of a mint and books kind of person. He built race machinery. So, you know, I zapped this around the track on Tuesday, really gave it some stick and really enjoyed zooming it round. And I'm sure he'd have enjoyed the fact that, you know, we found it, we got it back to the club, and anybody who comes to the club who's a competent racer who knew John can have a go with this. Just thought I'd share this with you, you know.
That's awesome.
That's very cool, man.
Very nice.
Yeah, well done, well done.
Yeah, yep.
Well, the floor is open. We've still got about 20 minutes to chat about whatever slot car related stuff we want to chat about. Gio is on. Hey, Gio, been a while.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Glad you could come. Hey,
yeah,
Sam.
I mean,
go ahead, Gio.
No, I mean, just saying that at times it's very difficult for me to kind of log in.
Yeah.
Because either it's too early or I have like other stuff going on when it's the latest slot.
Yeah.
So coming back to the car that Alan was showing, yeah, I mean, the fact that it's coming from a proper racer, it's so good. But you know, you can also build cars like that. I mean, all the parts and pieces are available from Blake Arrows. It's not like, you know, it's a unique piece that nobody can make anymore.
No, it's got more importance as a memento of the person.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that there's a car out there, I don't know where it is, and it's an old Chaparral that John built, and all the components are pre-1975, and I have no idea where that car is, that white Chaparral. And I'm not a vintage kind of guy. I like modern stuff. I don't like old stuff. But when I saw him drive that around the track one week, I'm thinking that is just as quick and stable as any modern car. What has he done to that car to make it like that? I have no idea who owns that car.
And you never got to look at it at the time?
I didn't. No, I didn't. But you know, you don't. You know, we're busy. It's a race night. We're all racing, so you don't really. And it's a bit rude sometimes to go up to someone and say, "Oh, show me that," you know, stop mauling their cars around. So I generally not that kind of racer. I like to look but there are, I understand why people do the vintage thing, but it's just not my thing. I like to be able to buy modern stuff and put it together properly.
Do you think there's any way for anybody out there to identify that particular car if they happen to pick it up at a sale somewhere?
Not really.
Yeah.
No, it would have urethane tires. It would have the typical tuning thing that John did, how he did his things, how the body floated, the way the motors were mounted. But unless you know how he built cars, you wouldn't pick that up and say, okay, and yeah, that's definitely it. You wouldn't know.
Or even know to recognize that a car has been tuned at all versus just being some toy. And it might just be in somebody's somebody's
you know, I said I bought that Ferrari. That was a bunch of. There were 4 cars. I bought 4 cars that I identified as John's cars that day, and they were all good. And I was like, I'm having all of those. There's no doubt at all. I'm having all of them. And if I can find more, there are more spot meets coming, and I'll find them. Now, John was very much into vintage stuff as well, and there was a twin motored 4-wheel drive Strombecker that was for sale, but it was nearly £200. That was the asking price. It's vintage. It was an alloy or steel chassis. It was matte black chassis, red. No, I'm not sure that it was Lexan or PTFE or something, the body, but it was very unique. You know, 2 motors, 4-wheel drive, 1/24 scale. And I'm looking at that thinking that would float somebody's boat. Somebody would absolutely love that. But it's not for me. So
yeah,
I love the 132 thing.
John was a racer back in the 60s, so you know he had a lot of stuff from that time as well.
All right, we got some hands up. Henry, did you want to talk about the club race that you had that video for?
I'll mute myself and directly a question in it. It was the first time in 2 years we go to a different club, to COVID, of course. And we went to Belgium, so the next country under Holland, to Mechelen, and we had our 3 hours of Revo match with the Porsche, the McLaren, the
Ferrari.
Yeah,
no, not a Ferrari. Ferrari's LMP.
Oh, okay. The early Revos.
F40.
Oh no, it's the latest one. The latest one. The McLaren.
Oh, the
Porsche.
Mercedes GLK.
Yeah, the Mercedes GLK. Yes, right. Then the question, because I posted 2 days ago on the forum, and one of the English guys said, I said we have handout tires, and they didn't know about handout tires, what it was. Do you normally don't drive handout tires in races?
Usually it's for a comp. I see that most often in competitions where people come from all around.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Okay. Yeah.
But you know, depends on who organizes it.
Oh, in the whole Holland, we say if we have a big race and it's about 30, 40 people was there in Belgium, then we get all handout tires.
Yeah, I think Alan, you can confirm this. Isn't the Oxygen 24 Hours a handout tire race?
Yeah.
Yeah. Typically long distance digital are, but they're not the only events. I mean, the Polycar Grand Prix that's held at Gaydon every year, when it's held by Andy Rowland and run by Slotted and Polycar, is that, yeah, those are handout tires. But that's okay if you're running low power cars like digital cars, where you can just pop those tires on. They don't need to be trued. They don't need to be glued. Then you can do handout tires. It becomes more problematic when you turn to the higher power cars. And I noticed that Molesey are running the British Grand Prix NSR next month. And I'm entered into that. And there are supposed to be handout tires, but it's a wood track. And these are King Purple motors. Obviously, the organizers have realized it's going to be a disaster to try and make people put those tires on those wheels, no truing, no gluing, on a wood track. It's not going to work. So the way they're going to go is they're going to give you the handout tires, but you can turn up with a car with trued, glued, oiled tires, as long as it says NSR on the sidewall. So handout tires, are supposed to equal things out, but they can be really problematic. And and just like motors, slotted tires can be quite variable. You can get ones that split. You can get ones where the injection pimple gets broken, and it isn't necessarily an equalizer. Sometimes it's a situation where if you get the good tires, you're good to go, and if you get the bad ones, you might as well go home.
At least with the Revo slots, the Revo slots are fairly low power motors. So unless the motors can be replaced with high power motors, and the wheels, the ribs are on the outside, so that the rubber can't move off the side when it's under stress as easily, anyways. But yeah, I mean that would work better than other types of tires, but still, good tires versus bad tires.
Yeah, the cars have to be out of the box. So you can do some alignment, you can take off the grease at home, of course. But for the rest, no fiddling around. Take your car and put them on a track and have fun 3 hours. But they did well, and all three kind of types of cars did well. Of course, the home races won. That's normally the case. There were 3 teams of home races, and we were the 4th place, so we were happy about it. It was on a career track, 6 lanes, so we had a wonderful time for the first time in 2 years.
Yeah, and Henry shared a link to the video of that race, so I'm going to put that in the description. So if you want to see some action from that, just click the link below. And we're running low on time, but I think we can probably squeeze Sam and Gio in. Sam, you've had your hand up for a little while. What would you like to ask or share or tell or whatever?
Well, on the subject of tires, I've been sitting here going through my cars, and while you guys have been talking, and like I mentioned before, I've got a basic scale electric track. And when I was pulling out some of these cars, they've been in their cases so long that some of the tires actually have imprints from the base. And I know they've probably gotten slightly hardened over the years. Is there anything that you recommend to kind of rejuvenate those so I can keep them from just spinning when you hit the throttle?
I mean, it depends on the tire. There's, there's lots of voodoo out there. Probably your quickest test is going to be finding some regular old 3-in-1 oil, like lubricating oil from 3-in-1, or sewing machine oil, or a really light motor oil, and just put a drop on each tire and rub it around so the tire is evenly coated all the way around, and see if that helps. Let it soak in for a few hours and see if it helps. If it doesn't help or potentially makes the tire worse, then you might as well just replace it, because there's pretty much nothing. If it doesn't soak up oil and get softer, it's probably not going to be useful.
Right. And
The
should I stick with, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Alan.
The recommendation I'd make is that you need to figure out a better way to store your cars, because storing, sitting on their wheels, sitting on their tires is really, really, really not a good idea.
Yeah. Even for toy tires, they'll get a flat spot, but especially with performance tires, really soft compounds, you'll ruin them by having a flat spot on the tire. When it comes to replacing the tires, your easiest and safest bet is going to be some Paul gauge urethanes. Depending on the retailer, you could probably find a Paul gauge urethane tire for pretty much any car you have, because he's made so many for so many different cars and brands.
Okay.
And urethane hooks up fairly well on sport track, especially if you still have the magnets in your cars. And
I'm sure they do.
And they're easy to true. You don't have to have a fancy machine. You can just scuff them on sandpaper if there's any high spots. Okay. But yeah, urethane's a good way to go.
Yeah, I know. When I was into the 124th, you had foam tires and a little lighter fluid would clean them and work great. But these
there's one 30-second foam tires. Scale Auto makes some competition foam rubber tires, and lighter fluid and other cleaning methods do the same thing for 1/32 scale tires. Just depends on how much money you spend. What was that, Dennis?
I would start by cleaning the tires with lighter fluid before you try to rub the oil in them, because that'll probably help take the aging and the skin off the top of the tire.
Or WD-40.
Okay.
Yeah. Clean them with lighter fluid first, or WD-40 or something like that, and then rub the oil into them.
Yeah, the advantage to WD-40, if you've got a can of that handy, it soaks in a lot quicker.
Okay.
And does some cleaning, like Dennis was saying. So that would be a much quicker test than let it.
And then don't oil it, or oil it after the WD-40s.
Oil it.
Yeah,
oil it after.
Yes. Yeah. Putting the WD-40 on will confirm that the tire will accept oil-like chemical. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, a few minutes left. Mike, you got your hand back up.
Yeah, I wanted to see if I could get Gio's take on the Carrera cars as far as setup goes. I don't know if you heard me before, but
I'm not sure. Do you even race Carreras, Gio?
Nowadays, not that much. I mean, we are basically doing a lot of GT3 racing using, the pro hobby type of cars. But within the past, which kind of questions do you have around the Carrera?
Well, I started doing magless Carreras, and I wanted to make a class out of it, but they're so awful, they hardly get around the track without magnets.
So first thing is put different tires on the back.
Yeah.
So,
I'm running urethanes.
Okay, so I've seen also people in Italy, and I've raced there as well on Carrera track with DTMs, Carrera DTMs. They use the P6, so they put it directly on top of the standard wheels. They don't fit 100% properly, but they give enough grip for going around and be pretty competitive.
Slotted
So
P6.
they slotted P6, yeah. So if they still they are making, so this could be a nice way. So again, you just to put them on without gluing and throwing, and they are ready to go. That's where I discovered the P6, and then when I went back to my truck over here, I started using P6 also.
On the sport track?
Yeah, they're pretty good tires without any need of gluing and throwing. And for the front, I mean, the usual type of kind of a treatment, you.
Yeah, well, usually what I do is I coat them with either nail polish or
Yeah.
super glue. And
But before doing
try
that,
and lower the front by either using diameter or offset bushings.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, the first thing that I would do is like through the wheels, then put the tires on, glue the tires, and then go for the throwing. Also, lowering the inner side more than the outside when I'm throwing them, so that basically they are only touching the outside, the most outside. I mean, the external edges of the tires.
On the front, talking.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And then basically cover with the CAs. I mean, and then using those bushings, I think will help to set the height. Yeah. So whatever you want to kind of, how you want to run them. I mean, and then I think the car will perform pretty okay. I mean, we did on Scalextric Sports, we did two classes. One was GT3, Carrera GT3, and then also DTMs, and they did pretty well. But it's not the same thing, of course, when you have a car with the pod and metal wheels and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, so it's different. It's a different kind of thing. I like the Carrera GT3 class, for instance, is very nice because you have plenty of cars, and now they also bring the new liveries coming from the DTMs, because DTM also moved to GT3. So there is a lot of, I mean, they're keeping up, and the cars are pretty equal as well as the configurations. Instead, I mean, Scalextric basically screw up everything. Now with the Corvette, they did another mess it up with the way in which they are positioning the guide. So yeah, Scalextric GT3s are not anymore a way to go.
Yeah. Well, I've changed the guides on all of them to a standard guide.
Oh, okay.
So
even better then.
Yeah, that's completely done and everything. So I just wondered if there's anything in particular. So far what I've tried, I'm put a slab of about 5 grams of weight in the center, and I'm using Scalextric chips that are that I've taken the hatch off and used those, so they all have that. But they were pretty terrible considering how heavy they were. They were really awful. So
I mean, there is another kind of a club. I don't remember the name. A club. Yeah, these are kind of people that have several trucks. I think it's in the east coast of the US, and they race on wood trucks. I think once a month. So they have different trucks across states, and they move around. And they use Carrera GT3 cars. And what they do, they use a stock rear wheels and tires, but they basically let them soak for 24 hours in NSR oil. So they keep turning them. And then the stock tires, Carrera stock tires, then will become really gooey and grippy. But to be honest with you, I mean, I never tried, and can be also very messy. So, go for a nice
chances
PC.
are that the tire will disintegrate eventually, because a lot of the Carrera tires disintegrate on their own.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And you've already switched to urethane tires, so you're not really going to.
Yeah, it's not apropos. I don't know whether I'll switch off later on. I'm just in the early process of trying them as a class, so I'm trying to equalize them as best I can and just get them so I can get them around the track easily enough without lifting the front end or flying off all over the place.
Yeah, as long as they're equally awful, then everybody gets...
Exactly.
We raced Carrera DTMs. I don't know. You can see that.
Yeah.
We race them with just the silicone tires on the back. I think it's Quick Sticks makes silicone.
Yeah.
And then I just strip out all the extra guts because they got all those stupid little switches and stuff in there.
Oh yeah, that's all gone.
All right.
And do you glue the motor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Motors
yeah,
are
that's
glued.
also, yeah, because reduce the vibration into the chassis basically.
But those DTM cars from Carrera, they're comparable to Scale Electric. I mean, they handle really nicely. They're not too much power, but yeah, I've never had a problem with them. And you got to change the red guide. You're racing Scale Electric, I assume.
Well, I've changed to a regular standard guide with an
like a
insert.
slotted guide or something.
Yeah.
Okay, because Carrera makes that red guide that I think is for scale. Okay.
Send those
to me
the
if you
one
use
out
them.
of the standard slotted or Carrera guide right away.
Okay.
Is there a difference between Carrera digital cars and analog cars? How they're made?
Not really.
No,
just
The
the
only
chip.
difference is whether it has a chip in it, and nowadays the analog cars don't have lights.
And
Some of
did
the
I hear
latest
somebody
analog-
say they drive wonderful?
What?
And did somebody say they drive wonderful like electric?
No.
They weigh 500 grams.
I think Jeremy was saying that the Carrera DTMs in particular drive pretty well. And that I would have to agree with. And that non-mag Carrera DTMs are a fun class to drive, and they're all so similar that they all drive fairly similarly to one another. So that's
And
not
a lot of the latest analog Carrera cars do have lights.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, the Corvettes that have just come out, they've got lights.
Well, you just can't rely on Carrera for anything anymore.
No, and I mean, when you think about it, for $40, it's a real pretty car, and it doesn't go too bad, and it has lights for those that like lights.
Dennis, if you buy the digital car for 54, you can sell the chips on eBay for 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a $30 car.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how.
There we go. Opportunity
that
to make a small fortune.
Yeah, starting with a large one.
All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there, and we'll wave goodbye and see everybody next week. Bye.